Happy Monday to you, Central Georgia. It's good to be back with you here, taking a look at your extended forecast. We have a lot to talk about what's going on specifically tropical-wise. That's been a big topic as of lately, but we're going to go over our forecast first and foremost before we touch on those because we're still not expecting any impacts here in Central Georgia from this tropical system. So first things first, we're going to go into our rainfall graphics because it's been a very wet month of August so far. And we can go ahead and start that out by looking at yesterday's almanac. First thing you see are the numbers, 93 for a high temperature on Sunday. That's just 1 degree above average for this time of year. Well shy of the record, and our morning lows dipping into the upper 60s, just giving you a little bit of a more pleasant feel as you walk out the door, but still not quite record-breaking territory. Yesterday was 9 degrees above that record low back in 1967 of 60 degrees. Boy, would that feel quite amazing right now. Taking a look at your precipitation, we didn't record any at Middle Georgia Regional Airport yesterday, but your year departure is 4 inches above where we should be this time of year. Yesterday was kind of a rare occasion where we actually didn't record anything in the way of rain. But take a look at these sunrise and sunset times. It's been a little bit since I've been taking a look at these. 7 a.m. for a sunrise now, so continuing to get later and later into the morning hours. And sunset now at 8:17. It won't be long before that sunset will approach the 8 p.m. hour. Once again, sunset getting a little bit earlier and earlier each day, and sunrise continuing to get later and later. So let's talk about rainfall for the month of August as a whole, and you will see that we have recorded rain a lot of days so far in the month of August. In fact, if I'm counting it up based off of yesterday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There have been 6 entire days that we have not recorded rain here in the month of August, which makes for 11 days that we have recorded some form of rain, even if it has been very minuscule amounts. You see right here, only recording about 1/100th of an inch, and that was back on August 12th, I believe, if I'm going down on the right line right there. So the total for August so far, nearly 5.5 inches of rain. On average, we typically see just over 3 inches in the month of August, and we were already close to that number by the time we were about 6 or 7 days into the month of August. So continuing to add to those totals, and the record of just over 12 inches back in 2004, not entirely out of reach because we still have a good another 12 to 13 days in the month of August. So obviously, if we continue at the same pace that we're at right now, we'll be getting close to about 10 inches, and then 12 inches or 12.5 inches doesn't seem really too far out of reach by any means. But with the latest edition of the drought monitor that we did get last Thursday, the data was taken as of last Tuesday. So that's what we typically see with these drought monitors. We get all the data issued through each week on Tuesday, and then they actually release it on Thursday, but it's not taking into account Wednesday or Thursday's rainfall. We don't find any sort of drought conditions here in Central Georgia. There is an abnormally dry patch as you go down I-16 east just outside of Central Georgia, but that's still not entirely too bad whatsoever. So while we did have these slightly dry conditions pop up very briefly, they have been very short-lived with all the rain we've received in the month of August so far. So your main headline will be mainly dry the next couple of days, and after so far what has been a very wet month of August, this is definitely very well warranted. We will see a steady temperature decline, but it probably won't happen until we really get into the end of the work week as clouds and rain chances will increase. We're actually looking like we'll have at least a day or two of some widespread rain chances as we roll into the weekend. Not the most opportune timing, I know, but hey, once we go in these dry stretches, we can't be dry for too long. We want to make sure that that grass is staying hydrated, and Mother Nature has just what the doctor ordered on that front. Now taking a look at your temperatures, low to mid 80s already here this Monday morning. This is going to be before the 11 a.m. hour right now, so 86 I think is the warmest number I see, and that is going to be up in Eatonton. So that's taking the cake for the warmest temperature in Central Georgia, and not too far off the warmest temperature that we see in the eastern United States. 86 matching that temperature down in Panama City, 86 in Orlando, but 87 in Jackson and New Orleans are going to be your warmest temperatures this Monday morning. And we do see that many of our neighboring states are feeling a very similar forecast to us, actually directly to the north of us. Maybe something in the form of rain-cooled air or plenty of cloud cover because we are seeing shades of yellow as opposed to the widespread orange we see over to the west. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures, nice and muggy. Now, I was reporting all morning long that we were looking at a steady downtick in these as we go throughout the next couple of hours. And just because these values are somewhere in the mid 70s, upper 70s, even the low 80s in Unadilla and Cordele right now, take a look at what's up here to the north and the northeast. Some patchy areas of that not too bad humidity. So the light green color is what we'll be searching for, and even just some shades of slightly lighter dark green, not necessarily this deep dark green that you see over in portions of Wilkinson County, up in Putnam and Jasper counties. Hopefully this very slight breeze out of the north and the northeast will continue to push some of that slightly drier air into central Georgia, and our heat indices aren't going to be blistering hot today. But along with that, we are looking at some of these slightly drier airs to really influence our forecasts in the way of inhibiting rain chances for the very start of the work week. Here's a look at some of those slightly drier airs as a whole. There's a big patch of humidity right here north of Columbia. That may even be a sensor error, but I wouldn't doubt it. I'm just not too familiar with the dew point temperatures and the moisture levels up there in South Carolina as I am down here. Winds and wind gusts, a steady breeze, but mainly some calm winds right now. At the most, you're seeing maybe a 3-mile-per-hour breeze, maybe some very faint shaded areas of blue down in Pulaski County and in Crisp County, but overall not much in the way of winds. We could see a steady breeze build in a little bit stronger as we go throughout the rest of the late morning hours and into the early afternoon hours. So the main headline will be the heat today in light of the mostly dry conditions. Feels like near 100, slightly above 100, or just slightly lower in the upper 90s. Nonetheless, whatever you're feeling like is going to be hot later this afternoon, even if it hasn't prompted any form of a heat alert. Afternoon rain chances are still there. You're not going to get rid of rain chances completely when you have a high temperature of 95 paired up with the humidity in the forecast, but 95 would be a little bit warmer than yesterday, and it's going to be a couple degrees above average for this time of year as well. So taking a look at your heat index graphic, peaking right there at the 100-degree mark. And this is just here in the downtown Macon area. You can see as we go into the evening hours, we'll start to see some mid-90s, some low 90s, and eventually just past sunset, we will finally dip down into the 80s in terms of what it does feel like. Satellite and radar picture, it has been crystal clear all morning long. Nothing in the way of cloud cover, nothing in the way of rain. Mostly sunny skies are the reason that we have warmed up so much to start today so far. And taking a look at the big picture view of the state of Georgia, the only rain we can find right now is going to be off the Atlantic coast of the state, close to St. Simons and Brunswick down there, and obviously some showers and storms getting going in near Jacksonville just to the south of the state line, but still not seeing really anything in the way of cloud cover, in the way of rain in the entire state of Georgia. So going into future view, let's take a look at how this afternoon looks. A couple of scattered showers really here in central Georgia, but you do see the potential for maybe even a storm popping up right there. According to this latest model run, it's up near the metro Atlanta area. So of course we have the potential here, but it does look like some slightly drier air will really inhibit the rain chances today. Now that I'm seeing good consistency with the model runs, I would probably bump today's rain chance down to about 10%, but I had 20% this morning to really cover the bases. And then as we go into Tuesday, a clear start to the day. We go into the afternoon hours, a couple of scattered showers. The rain chances are going to be greater in the northern portion of the state over the next couple of days, but some of those could creep down towards the south, clip our northernmost counties, once again in the form of showers and storms. Whatever you see in the way of rain is going to be very isolated in nature. It means that just a select few areas are going to catch maybe a shower, maybe a storm, and the chances of seeing a storm are going to be even less than that of just receiving a general shower, maybe a steady shower, maybe just a sprinkle. That's predominantly what your rain chances are going to be, probably over the next couple of days. And of course, severe criteria, we're not really confident in whatsoever. You can't necessarily rule it out of the realm of possibility this time of year. But of course, we're not really looking at sufficient ingredients for that. We would need a lot more humidity in the forecast, like we currently have with some of those dew points in the 80s, and we would need some warmer temperatures. Now we go into Wednesday morning, where this model run of Future View hinting at a couple of showers that could welcome you out the door. We'll continue to see if this scenario plays out, not necessarily putting too much stock into it. But Wednesday afternoon, it's the same story. And rain chances of the scattered form and coming in the form of a shower or a storm, just depending on where you do live. This latest model run has the rain chances better to the west. We'll see if that comes to fruition and see if the ingredients are more suitable for that as we more so get to the day of that. So in the next 3 days, basically the same forecast. Like I said, I would probably bump today down to about a 10% chance now, looking at it from a new model runs perspective. But over the next 2 days, a little bit of a decline. Highs right there around average in the low 90s, 20% chance of a shower or a storm. But overall, you have a very good likelihood of just going throughout the next 3 days and not catching anything in the way of rain whatsoever. So a well-warranted dry stretch given how wet we have been in the month of August so far. Here's a look at your afternoon high temperatures. A little bit of that downtick will persist Tuesday all the way through Thursday this week, but then another downtick as we go into Friday, and that's when we're really looking at the pattern change to ensue. But we could see a slight uptick in those rain chances by the time we get to Thursday, or rather I should say as early as Thursday. Now let's go into the humidity, which doesn't look to waver too much, but still looking to be kind of below this very muggy category. Some days are going to probably have a little bit of fluctuation, maybe a little bit higher than what this line does read. But overall, we're not really seeing a big substantial drop. And the main reason we look for this or look at this graphic during this time of year is to see if we see a drop down maybe into the comfortable range, which could indicate a possible frontal boundary coming through, but we don't look to have any indications of that. So let's go into your long range models. First and foremost, you notice the right side of your screen, and that is Hurricane Erin, which is going to continue to move off the Atlantic coast of the United States over the next couple of days. We'll touch on Erin in the tropics here in just a little bit, but first things first, let's nail down our forecast as we go into the end of the work week. This does look like a more impressive rain chance as it does currently stand for your Thursday evening, but we'll continue to fine tune that as we get Thursday in view of short range future view, which will be this time tomorrow. But the big thing is Friday. We are seeing very good agreement that it's going to be a pretty wet afternoon and evening. So it's not going to be the most opportune for football Friday night going out to these high school football games. But of course, we will probably need some rain by that time. And the rain isn't always a bad thing during the summertime months, because if you have rain or just even widespread cloud cover, those temperatures aren't even going to get up to average this time of year. It could be a pretty similar pattern to what we did have just about 2 weeks ago in time with widespread cloud cover, kind of those on and off showers throughout the day. And that could persist and kind of settle in from Friday this week all the way into Saturday. So I know those are the 2 days during the weekend that you really have probably most of your outdoor plans set in stone. And then rain chances do slim down a little bit going into Sunday, but it still does look like a better rain chance than what we have over the next 3 days for Sunday until Monday. Finally, that dreary pattern does try to move out of the picture, but still a good amount of cloud cover over the southeast that could keep those temperatures at bay. So now let's talk a little bit more about the tropics. This is kind of the main talking point, so we're going to talk about everything that you need to know with these specific storms and areas of development. There's only one of each, but first things first, Hurricane Erin. It did form as of late last week into a tropical storm, and between Saturday and Sunday, it rapidly intensified from about a Category 2 hurricane very quickly into a Category 5 before we knew it. So Erin underwent what we call an eye wall replacement cycle, which is just where exactly what it sounds like actually. The eye wall kind of tried to replace itself. So that's where your heaviest bands of rain are going to be, your gustiest winds. And as it underwent that, it does lead to a little bit of weakening within a tropical system. So Erin went from a Category 5 down to a Category 3, but now it has re-intensified as of late last night into a Category 4 hurricane, 130 mile per hour winds, which is like the bottom of the threshold for winds in order to classify as a Category 4. So high in Category 3, low in Category 4, whatever number you see by this, the main thing that I want to tell you is that we will see Erin maintain major hurricane status, Category 3 or higher, over the next 2 days. So you see the timestamps here. By the time we go into the overnight hours tonight, maybe finally weakening into a Category 3 storm, maybe even early tomorrow morning. That timestamp at 2 a.m. still has 130 mile per hour winds. That would still be of Category 4 status. But going down into 120 miles per hour on Wednesday at 2 a.m., it's going to undergo a very slow weakening trend as it starts to curve up to the north, Right now, Aaron is moving northwest at about 13 miles per hour. So we're going to look at Aaron to continue to change direction more northerly as we go throughout the next couple of days, but still maintain a pretty decent speed. 13 miles per hour doesn't seem like a lot, but it's pretty decent speed for a tropical system. That pressure is the most impressive thing that I see with Aaron right now. 933 millibars. We always talk about once you get below 1,000 millibars is really where a tropical system starts to take its shape and take its form and intensify a little bit stronger. Well, 933 millibars, that is well below 1,000. So obviously giving you an idea of how strong Hurricane Aaron is. And right now it is located just to the north of Hispaniola, off kind of the eastern side of the southern Bahamas right now. It did have some impacts in some of the Virgin Island areas. Puerto Rico resulted in some inland flooding, some pretty gusty winds, and it will continue to do that for some of these island nations down in the Caribbean. But it will make that northward turn kind of into no man's land between the eastern coast of the United States and over here off the eastern coast in Bermuda right there. But it doesn't look like it's going to have a direct impact in Bermuda necessarily. But let's play a couple more timestamps forward into the future where you will see not only will it maintain a northerly direction over the next couple of days, it will swing a little bit farther up into the north and the northeast. And this is going to take a very similar path to what some of our tropical systems have so far over the last couple of weeks. I believe the D-name storm, I can't even remember what it was at this point because we've been talking about Aaron so much. This is going to have a very similar path to what that storm had. By the time we get to Friday at 3 a.m., 100 mile per hour winds, and it will continue to weaken into a Category 1. And eventually, as it continues to move into these higher latitudes in the Atlantic Ocean, where the water is slightly cooler than it is farther down towards the south, it is going to continue to weaken into a tropical storm, then maybe a tropical depression, and then of course hopefully just a remnant system, and really break apart before it does continue its path up to the north and northeast, where it could come into contact with maybe some of Western Europe. But this isn't the only system that we're keeping our eye on. We do have another area right behind Aaron, kind of in the same area that Aaron did form in, that has been outlined for development. This is a system that we're probably going to be keeping a closer eye on. Obviously, the impacts from Aaron will be felt in the form of stronger rip currents, some pretty high surf on the Atlantic coast of the United States. Some areas of the Outer Banks have actually even been evacuated just because those island areas of the coast of North Carolina don't necessarily shield anything in the way of tropical storm force winds, hurricane force winds, all those impacts that you see with the tropical system. The islands are kind of the last place you want to be. It is good for areas farther inland because they do kind of act as a blocking mechanism and maybe don't make the impacts as bad. But if you are kind of the first in the direct line of impact, obviously it's better to be safe than sorry. So that's why we have seen some evacuation orders for coastal areas of North Carolina, and I imagine Virginia and Maryland will probably follow suit as well, even though Hurricane Aaron isn't expected to make a direct landfall anywhere. But this area right behind Aaron, so it's going to go across a similar path. The first thing that you're noticing is a light brown color off the western coast of Africa. That's still that lingering Saharan dust. So that's been doing a really good job of inhibiting tropical formation up until this point of hurricane season so far. So that's why we don't see really good chances of development over the next 2 days. Still at 0%, but we have seen a steady uptick in this chance of developing past that 2-day window. So over the course of the next week, I think in the last 12 or so hours, we've seen this uptick from 30% all the way to 50%. So it does look increasingly likely that this tropical wave is going to get its act together once it moves into a more conducive environment, kind of right smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You don't want any of this dust in the way. That's going to inhibit the tropical formation like we were talking about. So once it gets out of that dust cloud, it is going to run over that warm ocean water, and we are going to see the conditions get a lot more suitable for formation for our next named storm, which does look pretty likely, but it's still about a 50-50 shot over the next 7 days. I would put a good amount of stock in this being our next named storm, our 6th named storm of the year, but you can see that it's going to continue its western push, and then this orange area is going a little bit south as of right now of the path that Aaron did take, so maybe impacting more of these island nations down in the Caribbean, getting into Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, but then after that, it's anyone's best guess about where this system is going to go. You can look at these extended forecasts, you can look at all the spaghetti plots, and it can tell you that, oh, okay, this system going to get its act together, going to really intensify, it could come straight through central Georgia. Well, it's anyone's guess. Once we get past 7 days, we don't throw you anything in the forecast past then, because obviously it is really just an estimated guess. Like you just don't really exactly know what's going to happen, and we can't confidently tell you what's going to happen, so we don't want to go too far in the future and tell you one thing and then the exact opposite happen. Then that's where your forecasts definitely get a lot less and less confident. So if you're reading those 30-day forecasts looking for some temperatures, it's more than likely going to be wrong. So that's why we continue to just monitor it, what we have forecasted right now. So this area, this shaded area, does get fairly close to us, and it will be something we closely monitor. But who's to say that it doesn't take the exact same path as Aaron is? It starts to curve up to the north and then eventually to the northeast, or it could go down towards the south. We'll have to really just keep a close eye on it, and it's still not even definitive if this system is going to form into anything, even though the chances of development are kind of moderate, a little bit better than just some slim chances. But let's take a look at your list of names. We did cross off Aaron. Dexter was the fourth named storm. That's what I was trying to pick out. Like I said, when you start talking about these tropical systems a lot, some of the names start overlapping. You'll even catch some of us here on the weather team saying a wrong name storm for a storm that we've already covered for a new name storm. So just bear with us. The tropics are a very busy time for all weather teams across the country. So the next name is going to be Fernan. So I know it says Fernand, and that's how it looks like it's pronounced, but the official pronunciation is going to be Fernan, and we'll have that on the web story. You can kind of look at the pronunciation with that, but some of these names just are pronounced a little bit different than what they do look like on paper. That would be our sixth named storm of the hurricane season so far. Then after that, we'll go to Gabrielle, and then I believe it's Umberto, Imelda, and Jerry, Karen, all the way down the rest of the list until we reach the very end of hurricane season. But we are seeing this uptick in activity now, which is not atypical. It's the month of August. We start to see that uptick in activity once we get into August. Typically, late August, September, and early October are going to be your most active portions of the hurricane season. So we're kind of really just entering that window right now. We're really going to have to keep our eyes peeled for all these areas of development as they come off the coast of Africa, or they can very well form in the Caribbean and the Gulf, which we saw with systems like Helene and Milton last year. And that obviously is something a little more pressing. That's a lot closer to home, not going to take as much time to travel to us, but we want to give you all the information that you need. And right now, we just want to keep you informed. But just because you see something and you see one individual model run doesn't mean that you need to run to the grocery store and buy milk and eggs. We'll let you know if it's something that you need to worry about. Right now, we don't have anything that is going to impact us tropical-wise, but the setup from Aaron is probably going to influence what our forecast does have as we go into the weekend. So first and foremost, the first 4 days of your 7-day, all pretty similar in nature, but the biggest thing I want to turn your attention to is 20 to 30% chance of rain. I know it's basically the same thing, but the increase in rain chances will start as we go into the second half of the work week, and then 60% chance of rain on Friday and Saturday, because we're already seeing good agreement amongst the models that we are going to see some pretty widespread rain. It's not often that you're 5 days out ahead of time, and the GFS and the Euro are kind of totally on board with each other, but at the very least, we will see some mostly cloudy skies Friday and Saturday, and that is going to result in not as high of temperatures. 90 degrees for a high on Friday, 87 on Saturday, and then an 88 as we go into Sunday, where we finally see less agreement amongst the models, and that's why I have a downtick in the rain chances from 60 to 40% between Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully we can continue to see that downtick, and at least one day of your weekend ahead is going to shape up mighty nice for a forecast. But overall, you should plan on having the umbrella and the rain jacket handy and ready to go, especially for heading out to high school football games on Friday. And maybe you're just going to make for some great weather to watch College Game Day, week 0 happening this weekend. You can watch some College Game Day, watch the game over in Ireland between Kansas State and Iowa State. I know that is definitely what I'm going to do if the forecast does shape up to be quite dreary. So the setup that we have this weekend actually going to be a lot because of what Hurricane Aaron is doing in terms of the flow. There will be high pressure to the north of us, and then the low pressure associated with Aaron. That circulation between those centers of pressure going to kind of act as a funnel. So we could look at a very wedge-like setup to ensue as we go into this weekend. And like we had 2 weeks ago when we were talking about that wedge setup, increased cloud cover, some pretty increased rain chances, but we'll continue to see if those two features are really going to impact our forecast in this way. Regardless of how it's happening, it is looking like it is going to happen. So like I said, just plan for the rain jacket and the umbrella to be broken out of the closet as we go into the second half of the work week. But it is going to be hot for the first half of it, even though these temperatures don't seem too bad compared to what we've had over the last 3, maybe even 4 weeks. Well, they are obviously an increase from what we had last week, but compared to the upper 90s, the low 100s that we had about 3 weeks ago, these are still going to feel warmer when you pair it up with the humidity. And just because you're feeling like 100 degrees as opposed to 110 that we had a couple weeks ago, it is still going to be hot. Take all those proper precautions that you have been taking. Make sure that you're taking breaks and making some adequate time to take a break in the shade or in the AC, and keep that water bottle very close by throughout the next couple of days. So that'll do it for your extended forecast here this Monday. We'll be back with another update on the tropics and everything you need to know about how to plan out your work week accordingly here in Central Georgia this time tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.